So, Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind. Now, it is a little unfair that you guys make me review this movie. Because not only is this an amazing movie, it is also probably one of my favorite movies ever made, period. High praise. I love this movie. I don't know what I can say about it. It just hits me in a certain way. I love this movie. So, what is this movie about? Let me just get the premise out of the way. So, Jim Carrey plays Joel, who's a depressed person, and he finds out that his girlfriend of many years, Clementine, played by Kate Winslet, no longer remembers who he is, has no recollection. He finds out that she got this surgery to have all of her memories of Joel erased. And it's this thing, so if you break up with someone, you can have them erased from your memory so you don't have to grieve over them and stuff like that. And Joel says, I'm going to do the same thing for Clementine. And as he's doing this process, as he's getting his memories erased, he relives the moments that he's spent with Clementine. And the whole movie basically happens in his head, him reliving these moments. Why do I love this movie so much? The movie's got a nice style to it. It's really a nice style, but it's not style. Let me get this out of the way. It's not style over substance. So many times you watch movies and they're doing cool camera shit. That's not what's happening here. It is happening here, but there's a point. The reason why the style is like it is that it feels like a dream. It feels a lot like Inception, where there's some things that just don't make sense. The editing sometimes slows down, sometimes speeds up. It really gives the illusion that everything's a dream and everything's up in the air. But just the style aside, for the time, this movie had excellent CG, which is something that goes unnoticed. But if you go on YouTube and look at what the CG they've done in this movie was, just subtle things like trying to edit scenes together seamlessly, using CG to mask some errors like that. Very comparable to what David Fincher uses CG for, and I could admire that. This movie does a lot well with CG. On a character level, I thought all of the characters are pretty good. I thought Joel, at the time of this movie's release, the only other dramatic roles that Jim Carrey had were Man on the Moon, where he played... and I'm getting my Kaufmans mixed up, where he played Andy Kaufman, and he played in The Truman Show. But in those movies, despite being really good performances, I kept seeing Jim Carrey, and there's still comedic performances. Andy Kaufman was a comedian, and The Truman Show, Jim Carrey was still kind of comedic in that movie. He would do a good afternoon, good evening, and good night. He had the little isms of a Jim Carrey. This movie, he's a completely different person. I really buy him as Joel in this movie. Same thing goes for Kate Winslet. Kate Winslet plays this crazy, my type of girl. I got a type, that's my type. Just like crazy all over the place, ADHD kind of girls. What can I say? We all got a type, you know. But, these actors aren't really working in their wheelhouse is where I'm getting at, and it really works for this movie. As for Charlie Kaufman, I've said this previously in another video, Charlie Kaufman is a horror movie director in my opinion, or a horror movie writer. He wrote this screenplay, he didn't direct it. But he's a horror movie director in my opinion, because the premises he comes up with, although there's not the conventions of a horror movie, there's no ghosts and shit like that, they really play on your anxieties. And that was very present in I'm Thinking of Ending Things, and it's very present in this as well. Imagine having to just sit down and relive your memories and trying to chase after them, but the timeline keeps moving forward and you're just like chasing the past. That kind of thing kind of plays on like some fears that I have, and I'm sure other people have. And he always does that. Synecdoche, New York is the fear of not amounting to anything, the fear of being unsuccessful. When you look at a movie like I'm Thinking of Ending Things, it's about the anxiety of having to put up with someone you don't really like. When I watch Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind, I really get an anxiety. Like, what if I was just strapped to a chair having to relive moments of my life? and it's like it keeps moving forward. And he really plays with time well. Charlie Kaufman with his screenplays, because it's very disorienting. You don't really know where you're at. There's parts of Joel's life that speed up, parts that slow down, and it gives this nice sense of disorientation in a good way. It's not in like a sloppy, this guy can't write way. It's a very intentional thing. It's to make it feel more dreamlike, and that's another thing that he does in I'm Thinking of Ending Things. Now, why does this movie work as a romantic film? Many things. I feel like romantic films, what they suffer from the most is they don't want to show the dirty part of falling in love. Just those moments where you just hate the other person. Those are the parts that filmmakers tend to shy away from, because it's such a hard thing to pull off, in my opinion, like having the characters fall in love and then loathe each other. But since you're playing with Joel's whole life and his whole relationship with Clementine, you're able to cherry pick moments from that relationship and see where were the ups and where were the downs, and you really get a sense of who these characters are and why they did fall in love and why they did get annoyed with one another and why they are arguing and why they want to break up. It really shows the whole scope of what a relationship is without necessarily having to stop and explain stuff or stuff like that. I just thought having the framing of this being him reliving all of his moments allowed to see different stages of what it's like to fall in love. Spoilers alert. The ending of this movie is really fantastic. They end up together in the end, which makes it all the better to watch for a date movie. When you watch a date movie and the two people don't end up together, kind of defeats the purpose of a date movie. You want to promote the fact that love is real because you're hoping to like fall in love with a girl and like have a thing. So if you show them a movie like Blue Valentine, where it's just like they don't end up together and it's just left with the kids screaming like, "Daddy, come back!" That doesn't make a girl fall in love with you, you know? But if you show them Eternal Sunshine... I've watched Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind with ladies and they're like, "Ah, it's so good. Ah." It's really weird because this movie does appeal to a broad audience, in my opinion. I've seen this movie with girls, and girls are like, "Oh my god, it's so nice, it's so dreamy, it's beautiful, yada yada." All that lovey-dovey shit that women like. Yet, it's written by Charlie Kaufman, it's directed by Michel Gondry, who's a more artistic director. So it has a lot of things that a film buff like me will like, that a broad audience won't necessarily recognize or be that into. Which is nice, because it's rare that a movie appeals to both fart-smelling snobs like me and broad audience. So Charlie Kaufman, although he did sway away from that later in his career, like I don't think Anomalisa in Synecdoche, New York appealed to a broad audience the same way as Eternal Sunshine. But it is present in this movie nonetheless, so that is something that I do like with this movie. I feel like you can watch this with anyone. And it is a more, not a straightforward narrative. It isn't, but it's still very accessible and you can really tell what's going on, which is why I think it appeals to a broad audience. It breaks convention, but it's not too complicated at the same time. Some parts that I like in the movie, I really like the part where Jim Carrey goes to his younger self and has a Superman cape, and that whole thing with having a little Jim Carrey and a tall Kate Winslet. They got a little creative there. I feel like some people don't like the parts with Kirsten Dunst. I feel like people have problems when it cuts back to Kirsten Dunst. I thought that was also a good thing because you do see the repercussions that come with such a controversial surgery. This whole movie kind of plays out like an episode of Black Mirror, where it takes this premise and extends it over a film and says, what would it be like if we introduced this to society? It does that, and when it was the Kate Winslet storyline, they did focus on the repercussions of that controversialness. But the heart of the movie, the emotion of the film, is in Jim Carrey's storyline. One thing I did like about this movie as well is that when we're seeing all the memories that Jim Carrey has, they're presenting the objects in front of Jim Carrey to get a map of his brain. And Jim Carrey is a Tom Waits fan, which I can respect. I do like me some Tom Waits. Here's my Tom Waits impression. Here it goes. Inside a broken clock, oh, the rain. Oh, fuck, that was awful. Alright, I should stick to Ray Romano. It's the only impression I can do. Not Tom Waits. But yeah, this is like my favorite movie of all time. This review probably sucks because I'm just drooling all over the movie. But it really is a fantastic movie. If you haven't seen Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind, please watch it. It definitely grew a cult following because I'm seeing more and more people talk about this movie. And when it first came out, I don't think it had that much attention to it. It didn't get much Oscar love, in my opinion. It got stuff like screenplay, sure, but this should have swept easy. This was an easy sweep Oscar movie, but no. Fantastic film, really takes chances, and it really pays off. Great performances, great emotion. Good date movie. I'm honestly not just saying this because I love the movie. If you watch this movie with a girl, she'll fall in love with you. That's my guarantee. My guarantee. Okay? And if it doesn't come true, you can unsubscribe to this channel. Don't unsubscribe to this channel. I need the subs. Alright, so putting this on the love meter, it's a 100% on the love meter. Guys, it made my heart melt like a motherfucker. Got a fucking tuna melt in here right now.
I don't want this anymore. I want to go